Greetings, friends. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today to discuss the importance of fighting censorship and the value of Banned Books Week. My name is Nanette Perez. I'm the Program Officer for the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom, here to help facilitate the Q&A portion of the Hangout, as well as talk briefly about ALA's efforts in support of Banned Books Week 2014, which will take place September 21st through 27th. We also will hear from our fellow Banned Books Week sponsoring organizations, Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, Dave Gladney from the Association of American Publishers, Michael O'Neill from the National Coalition Against Censorship, to talk about their activities. Before we just delve into that discussion, I think it would be great to hear from our honored guest, Cory Doctorow. Cory Doctorow is the science fiction author, activist, journalist, and blogger, the co-editor of Boing Boing, and the author of the best-selling teen HarperCollins UK novel, Little Brother, which has been challenged because of its politics and its contents at the Booker T. Washington High School in Pensacola, Florida. Here to discuss the controversy with Cory is Charles Brownstein, Executive Director of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. CBLDF has successfully managed several First Amendment cases, and Charles has also written extensively about comics for more than 15 years. Welcome, Cory and Charles.
Thank you so much, Nanette, and thank you, Michael, for hosting us here at the National Coalition Against Censorship offices. And thank you, Cory, for calling in right before you're off to a big flight tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm speaking at the Edinburgh Publishing Conference tomorrow.
Well, we appreciate you breaking in from your busy schedule to discuss the importance of free expression as we launch the cycle of preparing for Banned Books Week. And what a topical moment to have you with us, as your book, which is about questioning authority and the importance of critical reasoning and critical thinking and the importance of our own individual ability to influence our destinies, is ironically canceled as a summer reading project in Florida. Tell us a bit about the challenge, how it came to your attention, and your response as an author facing this.
Well, first I heard of this all was that I got an email from the librarian at Booker T. Washington High in Pensacola, Florida, saying that they had just gotten together and agreed on what their summer read would be for their One Book, One School program that all the students would be asked to read over the summer. And it was very last minute, but could I make them a video introducing the book so that the kids would have that video before they went home for the summer? So I made a video, and I put it up. And a couple of days later, I heard from both the head librarian and then from the head of the English department saying, at the last minute, literally just before the kids have gone home for school, our principal has decided to cancel the One Book, One School program altogether. That there will be no book assigned to all the students this summer, and it's basically because of what he read about your book. And I got forwarded an email chain in which the principal discusses what he had read about the book with his staff, and he says things like, it is a book that celebrates anti-authoritarianism, it's a book that teaches kids how to hack, it's a book that has a sex scene in it. And it's true, the book does all those things, although the sex scene is, I have to point out, very much off stage. I've written books for adults with sex scenes. I know a sex scene when I see it. That's not a sex scene. Saying, you know, we decided to have sex and then having the curtain be pulled on the action and then opening on a new chapter in which they've had sex is not a sex scene per se. And he said that he thought the parents would object to the profanity. And again, there's not any profanity in the book. There's a reference to profanity. And I have to say the faculty put up a very spirited defense of the book. Having seen the email chain and discussed it with them, I'm really honored by this. It seems like they were, if in some ways, even more upset than I was that this had happened. For one thing, they had prepared some really excellent curricular materials that are online now for their students to use to discuss the book. And I think they had a real understanding of the value of a school-wide read, that when you allow everybody in the school to read the same book, that you have a school-wide conversation that you wouldn't get just by assigning different classes different books. And in the end, the principal assigned my book as an AP grade 11 English optional. And you know, I'm not all that worried about whether or not everybody in the school buys a copy of my book. All of my books are available as free downloads, and ultimately, my publisher, the wonderful folks at Tor Books and Tor Teens, sent 200 free copies of the book to the school. So it wasn't like I was worried about the money. It's just that having started writing young adult books now for 6 years, I've spoken to so many classrooms and so many schools about this, and every time I do, I learn so much, because kids are really smart about books, and I was really looking forward to coming back to them and talking to them in the autumn for a school-wide conversation about the book. And seeing the faculty's energies being squandered this way and the opportunity being squandered this way, really, from what it seems as someone who hasn't even read the book, just seems to me to be not in the spirit of what public education should be for. You know, and both my parents are career public educators. My mom is a K-3 teacher. My dad is a high school math teacher. My brother's a teacher. I teach at the university here. I'm a professor visiting professor at the Open University here in England, where I live, and I have a lot of respect for the profession. I just don't think that it's good pedagogy. I don't think that it's the right decision, and I'm sure, you know, absent any other evidence, that this principal is, like all the career educators I know, someone who's really dedicated to the profession. And I don't think he's like a bully out of central casting. I don't assume I'm up against, you know, Ferris Bueller's nemesis. I think he's probably just someone who made a bad decision, and I hope that he doesn't double down on it. I hope that he realizes that there's a better way forward, better for their kids and better for education.
One of the things that the groups on this hangout do is speak up for the freedom to read in a variety of forms. Partially, we create events like Banned Books Week as a coalition activity to promote these conversations, but we also try to chime in and help principals and help educators move towards the right direction, move towards the direction of trusting their students and trusting their faculty that the kids are going to be all right by being exposed to this. And one of the things that happened in response is Joan Burton, the chair of National Coalition Against Censorship, and the lead on the Kids' Right to Read project, of which Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and AAP and American Booksellers for Free Expression are sponsors, actually got involved in trying to affect a positive outcome. And Michael, I'd like to invite you to talk a bit about that letter and what it had to say.
Sure. There are kind of three main points of impact when you have a book like this being taken away, and Cory addressed one of those, which is the impact on the quality of education. What is it saying to students about should they be trusted or allowed to have access to a work that has some complex themes in it that actually speaks to their interests or things that they see in the world. So by removing any book from the curriculum that anyone could conceivably have an objection to, you're going to end up with a very sterile, bland curriculum that does not prepare students for an enriching life or even just facing what's out there in the world. Second is we talk about the constitutional implications. It's very constitutionally problematic for a single administrator or for a couple people within a public school to remove a book just because it contains something that they don't like. The Supreme Court has been clear on this in rulings over the decades. You can't just have the school or a public official be the arbiter of what is appropriate. And a lot of people don't think that applies to schools, but it does in a very important way. And the third point is if you remove Little Brother, that sets a precedent that can open the floodgates for any parent who objects to any book for any reason to complain to the principal or another administrator and say, I don't want the school reading this book. And they'll say, well, you removed it for Little Brother, so why can't you remove it for whatever book that I'm talking about now? And that creates just an ungovernable situation, which, again, you're not going to have many interesting books left on the shelves, and also you just can't run a school that way. So the issue of the administrator making a bad choice that's a really important point, because we advocate for schools to have a transparent book challenge policy that is consistently applied and is publicly known, so that it's not up to one administrator to make a decision that could be knee-jerk or it could be well considered, but you have a consistent policy that includes a formal challenge, a formal review, and either a review committee that is a subset or appointed by the board of the district or the board itself, and you have a comment period, and through having concrete steps that are followed in any challenge, you are allowing the faculty to make their professional voices and expertise heard. You are allowing a parent to have his or her say over what their child might read, and maybe part of that policy includes a substitution for that particular child, but it doesn't give a parent or a single administrator to make the choice for the entire community as to what is or is not appropriate to read after a book has been selected through a rigorous, engaged process by the faculty and the school community.
And that's one of the interesting things about Banned Books Week, is that this process that Michael's addressing, this process that, Cory, your book has gone through of a single bad decision leading to the book being suppressed, is something that happens hundreds of times every single year. The ALA documents hundreds of cases, and we all suspect that there's many more that go undocumented of books being challenged, which, fair game. If you are in a public institution, you can bring a challenge, and if there is a process, the community has a right to hear it. But in so many cases, there isn't enough knowledge that there is a process. There isn't enough knowledge about ways to engage the public in these conversations. One of the other interesting things, too, when you look at the lists of books that have been banned or challenged over time, is that you notice two important threads emerging. This year's list is really an assault on what kids like to read in their free time. And so the age-old censorship argument about we're protecting youth comes into this idea that we don't trust them enough, or we object to what's in here, that we're going to remove that option, or we're going to remove that option from their parents to have this conversation. But also, some of the best books in the history of literature are on this list. So, Cory, I'd like to ask you, how does it feel to be joining that list of so many esteemed creative people over our heritage that have been banned or challenged?
You know, it's funny you should mention that. And as I said, I put up a video for the kids after the book got challenged, and as I said there, I've always felt like, you know, what's a guy got to do to get his book challenged around here? Because I celebrate Banned Books Week every year, and I always feel a little left out. And you know, my dad, after I told him about this, he reminded me of this poem by Bertolt Brecht called "The Burning of the Books," and it's about a writer whose books have been sent to the or who's watched from exile as totalitarian regime sends oxen loads of books to the bonfires, and he rushes to his desk full of contemptuous wrath to write fierce letters to the morons in power. "Burn me," he writes with his blazing pen. "Haven't I always reported the truth, and now here you are treating me like a liar? Burn me!" And you know, there is a certain Brechtian moment in having your book challenged. It does put you in very good company, and you know, I all joking aside, I really am very grateful to the National Coalition, especially because they've not only been very helpful to me in this, they've been very helpful to the faculty there, and for me, I want to acknowledge that for me, having a book challenged is ultimately a bit of an ego boo, even if I feel like I've lost an opportunity. But the faculty at Booker T have really taken a professional risk by doing this, and they've been supported immensely by the coalition, and I hope by their teachers' associations, because you know, they're challenging their boss in public. It's getting written up in newspapers. It's a precarious job market, and I'm incredibly grateful to them for what they've done, because you know, they don't get the ego boo. They don't get, to quote Brecht, they just get to wonder whether or not they're going to get to keep feeding their families.
That's exactly right, and that's a very important point, that as we celebrate Banned Books Week, every single book that is celebrated has a story like the story of the faculty at this school where people are in peril of losing their jobs, or where people are in peril of having their rights restricted. And so while we celebrate the great creativity, it is important to acknowledge the risks. That's an excellent point. The challenge to authority is a theme that runs throughout your body of work, Cory, and I was lucky enough to read your next book, which is a graphic novel coming out around the time, actually, that Banned Books Week is celebrating comics this year. It's a collaboration with Jen Wang called In Real Life, and I was wondering if you could talk a bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So In Real Life, it's an adaptation of a short story I wrote called Anda's Game, which was a young adult short story about a young woman who plays video games and finds herself involved in a union drive among gamers, gamers in the developing world in China who, or in Anda's Game, it's in Mexico, and the novel I did in For the Win, it's in China, who are being paid to do menial work in the games in order to amass fortunes that are sold to players who are either too impatient or too strapped for time to bother doing those menial chores themselves. And it's a story about how class differences and national differences and self-identified sort of subcultural identities, you know, are you a gamer, are you a cheater, are you a worker, that those all come into new and interesting collisions in the 21st century in the networked world. And Jen Wang, who did the adaptation, did such an amazing job, and she really took my source material and ran with it. And really, I have to give credit to her for the wonderful things in real life, because it's one of those things where you can look into the book, and as the author of the underlying work, I can see the influence of my work in it. But I've been honored by really a magnificent creator who has brought her prodigious talents to bear on it and made something out of it that, while it's recognizably something that has its origins in my work, is her work too. And Jen, if you've read her other work like Coco Be Good, you'll know that she's a really wonderful comics creator in her own right. And so I was very happy with how In Real Life came out. She made the story much more contemporary. I think she made it much more relevant to an American audience. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how the public reacts to it. The early critical notices have been so good.
This year's Banned Books Week is, as I've mentioned, celebrating comics and graphic novels, which are a still frequently misunderstood form of storytelling. And in just the past year, there have been two extremely prominent graphic novel challenges in the education space. This year, the challenge to Fun Home as part of the challenges to LGBT assignments in the South Carolina higher education environment that has actually led to proposed budget cuts and then a extremely dubious compromise that the state mandated that the budget now needs to be spent on constitutional education, where ironically the kids will learn that that's wrong, you can't do that. But also last year, Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi was the subject of a controversy in the Chicago public schools. And both of these books, and I encourage you to go to any of our partner websites, cbldf.org and CACALA, and read the backstory on this. But I'd like to talk for a moment about the challenges that are unique to the comics and graphic novel format, because they thrive on the power of the static image. And when a challenge to a book is brought, what's supposed to happen is that the book needs to be taken as a whole. Comics are unique in so much as, since they are executed and the story is told in static images, many times you are faced with challenges based upon a singular image, and it's easier to take this material out of context. Cory, as both an advocate for and critic of the form, and now as a creator of comics and graphic novels, what are some of the more unique and, you believe, more misunderstood aspects of the medium that lead to challenges occurring?
You know, I think that your thesis is a good one, that comics are more liable to being taken out of context than prose. But I think both prose and comics can be taken out of context. You know, you could sum up all of Huckleberry Finn as a count of the number of times the N-word appears and call it a day and still miss the point, right? I think that comics shares a certain heritage with science fiction in that it's and games, in that they're considered a kind of trashy medium, And they have both been blessed and cursed by that. So science fiction, if you read the kind of old-line science fiction fans from the 50s and 60s, they talk about the glory of living and working in a ghetto where no one paid too much attention to what they were doing and all the amazing things they could get away with that their colleagues working in more mainstream media that were taken more seriously couldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Frank discussions of weird sexuality and racial politics and anti-war politics and things that challenged the political orthodoxy, that kind of thing thrived in science fiction in a way that was often overlooked because no one assumed that there was anything important going on in there. And if you look into the history of comics, you see loads of that, and particularly when you look at the writers whose names have now become names to conjure with, Will Eisner and so on, and you look back into the Eisner and Kirby history, you see all sorts of comics that you think, my goodness, if that had been between prose pages, that would have shocked and alarmed the establishment in ways that, beggar the imagination, but none of them ever bothered to look. So on the one hand, it's been a sneaky place to put interesting stuff. On the other hand, that's also been its great downfall, because a medium that no one takes seriously is a medium you can ban with impunity. If there's nothing important conveyed in comics or science fiction or games, then a challenge to science fiction or comics and games doesn't have the gravitas that banning a novel has. And and you can see it just in the use of labeling in games and in comics. If you go into a bookstore and you look at the novels, you'll find novels that have very frank erotic content, Nabokov's Lolita, on the literature shelf and not in the over 18 section. But a graphic adaptation of Lolita would certainly end up on the top shelf of the comic shop behind a banner that said 18 plus only, because of comics authors who are worried about ending up in jail, as they have comic store owners who have every reason to worry about ending up in jail, because it's happened, for selling a comic that has frank content to kids. The same is true in games. You can describe the most grotesque murders if your name is William Shakespeare and put them between a set of covers, but put those same murders in a first-person shooter, and all of a sudden your game is shelved on a high shelf, and otherwise reasonable people want to know why it should be legitimate for a 14-year-old to buy it. Those same people would never ask a librarian to make sure a 14-year-old doesn't take the collected works of Old Bill out of the library.
All right. So as Banned Books Week is coming up, you said you celebrate Banned Books Week. How are you looking forward to celebrating this year, and how would you encourage our audience to do so?
Well, I always celebrate it by promoting the hell out of banned books. It usually starts with someone sending me a link to one or more of the banned book sites, and then I just go to town on Boing Boing, which is the website I co-edit, linking to as many banned books and talking about what I love about them as I can. Certainly there is no better Banned Books Week activity than spreading banned literature, and we live in a unique era in that we live in the era of the Streisand effect, where if someone mentions that something has been banned, you are one search query away from finding that thing, and that's novel. When they banned Ulysses here in the UK, everybody knew it was banned and no one could get their hands on it. Today, just knowing that Ulysses is banned is newsworthy, and as soon as you know it, you can get your own copy. And so that's a remarkable and rather wonderful thing. And so just going around and telling people about your favorite banned books is a contagion that spreads. It's pretty cool, the idea that the more something is cracked down on, the more newsworthy the crackdown becomes, and the more people who find themselves going off and reading it.
Absolutely. Perhaps now would be a good time for some of our partners on the Hangout to introduce their own Banned Books Week activities that they're sponsoring.
Dave, since we haven't heard from you yet, would you like to start?
Sure. First, I'd like to thank Cory for taking the time to join us, and Nanette and the folks at ALA for organizing, and Charles and Michael for moderating this excellent conversation. As Nanette said, I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about what Banned Books Week means to AAP and its members and what we all do to support it. So The Association of American Publishers is a national trade association. We represent more than 300 premier publishing organizations who produce commercial, educational, professional, and scholarly content, and that's in all media, reaching all corners of the world. The defense of free expression and the protection of the free marketplace of ideas is a central idea to our mission. Publishers understand the threats to free speech are not abstract. They have a profound effect not only on the day-to-day business of publishing, but obviously the negative impact on the readers that we've discussed today. AAP's Freedom to Read Committee works on the industry's behalf to mitigate these threats to the benefit of all parties. As one of the founders of Banned Books Week, the AAP continues as a proud sponsor of this annual celebration of our right as Americans to freedom of choice in what we read. This week reminds us that while not every book is intended for every reader, each of us has the right to make that choice. As was alluded to briefly earlier, fully 1/3 of the books selected by the Modern Library as the 100 best novels of the 20th century, including 6 of the top 10, have at one time or another been removed or threatened with removal from bookstores or libraries and schools. The Grapes of Wrath was actually burned in public shortly after its publication in 1939 and has remained near the top of Book Banner's hit list. Many of AAP's publishers, our member companies, have been active and proactive supporters of Banned Books Week each year since its founding. And they have a long list of things, of ways that they're going to support it this year. I'll just read off a few of those. They include freedom to read ads on their websites, and email blasts on print materials. They're creating dedicated Banned Books Week websites to celebrate their books that have been banned. They are featuring banned and challenged books online, creating and producing classroom materials, discussion guides, supplemental school library activities, and teaching guides that explore the issues of censorship and banned books. They are running contests and organizing community Banned Books Week events. They're submitting and encouraging authors and employees to participate in the annual virtual readout. They're tapping into the industry's extensive digital reach with readers to support Banned Books Week celebration through social media campaigns on Facebook, Twitter, etc. And they're also setting up readings at independent bookstores and libraries around the country, featuring authors whose books have been banned or challenged and authors who feel strongly about the issue of book censorship. This year, as the week focuses on graphic novels, AAP will continue to remain firmly committed to the goal of mobilizing public support for continued availability of the widest variety of books and reading materials, including those that put forth controversial or unpopular views. And we always encourage people to reach out to us with more questions about our involvement. You can find out more about what we do around Banned Books Week at publishers.org.
Thank you. Nanette, the American Library Association is also a founding organization and does tremendous work every single day in protecting the freedom to read books. Nanette also is the tireless heroine behind bannedbooksweek.org and so many of our initiatives. And so, Nanette, I would like to ask if you would speak a bit about some of the ALA initiatives and a little bit about bannedbooksweek.org as an important hub of information to celebrate the freedom to read.
Thank you, Charles. Well, for Banned Books Week this year, we will continue to host the Banned Books Virtual Readout, which is where people video record themselves reading from their favorite Banner Challenge book. And Cory, if you'd be willing to contribute a video, that would be wonderful.
Certainly.
For more information about how to join the readout, you can go to bannedbooksweek.org/virtual readout. We will add your video, Cory, to the list of celebrities, including Whoopi Goldberg, and that was a video put together by, thankfully, NCAC. There's Judy Blume, Bill Moyers, Spoon Chbosky, and Lauren Miracle. And during the ALA's annual conference in Las Vegas, Stage Publications, along with the Office for Intellectual Freedom, will host a video readout booth, which is located outside of the exhibit hall on Saturday and Sunday. And if you are an ALA member and are attending the conference, actually you don't need to be a member, but if you are attending a conference, please join us there. We also plan on hosting more Google Hangouts during Banned Books Week, specifically focusing on graphic novels. We would like to use these Hangouts as a way for bookstores and libraries across the country to supplement their Banned Books Week events. And if you're interested in merchandise that will help you celebrate the week, we have this poster back here, if you can see it, and a short list of banned and challenged books. As for the bannedbooksweek.org website, it's a great place for you to add your events, local events. I believe it's bannedbooksweek.org/events. And am I missing anything? No, I think that's it.
Outstanding. Michael, the Coalition has a variety of projects that it pursues, and Banned Books Week is one of them. Could you speak to us about those efforts?
Sure. So for the last few years, actually, during Banned Books Week, we have had a table at the Brooklyn Book Festival, which attracts tens of thousands of avid readers every year, and we bring our Banned Books library, and we actually set up at the booth with library shelves full of books that have been banned or challenged over the years, and we include a banned books catalog that people can browse through and then actually find the title on the shelf. And it really awakens people to just the breadth of material that people have tried to remove from classrooms, remove from shelves, or even larger attempts to ban items from our history. So the biggest problem with that is that people try to buy the books from us, and we say, no, we're not actually selling these. This isn't an actual lending library, but we're happy for you to browse them here and then to take a copy of the catalog home to do research on their own. And they're just surprised to find things like books by Dr. Seuss and Huck Finn and classics, and then books that like Ender's Game, modern classics, YA books. So it really brings the issue to a lot of people who love books and are there to see great authors and different stars of the literary world, but also get an idea of the challenges that we're facing across the country. So we'll be at the Brooklyn Book Festival again. Please stop by if you're going to be at the Brooklyn Book Festival. And also, we're planning on continuing to work with the people in South Carolina who are opposing this really pernicious budget bill that, Charles, you mentioned earlier. Originally, the South Carolina state budget was going to cut funding from 2 universities that included titles with LGBT themes in them. You mentioned Fun Home by comics artist Alison Bechdel. Also, Out Loud, The Best of Rainbow Radio, which was a book that was written by one of the actual faculty at the university where this state legislature was trying to deprive them of funds. The so-called compromise that you mentioned earlier is that what the budget has mandated is that for every dollar spent teaching one of these 2 books or other books with LGBT themes, they have to spend equivalent money teaching the Constitution and the Federalist Papers and other items. And those are all fine things to study, except that, as Charles mentioned, any close reading of the First Amendment will let you know that mandating that kind of curriculum interference from the state legislature is constitutionally really problematic. And so it's the interference with academic freedom, the targeting of particular identities or particular ideas that are the problem here. And so we want to continue to work with South Carolina and have some activities during Banned Books Week to continue to help people there voice their discontent with this budget. The governor, Nikki Haley, actually had the ability to do a line-item veto on these provisions, and she chose not to. And so she gave a green light to this assault on academic freedom and to this targeting of books. And so if you're in South Carolina, go to ncac.org and sign up for more information about that. And actually, also, we in a couple weeks we'll be sending out our banned books summer reading list. That'll be part of our newsletter that we send out over email every couple weeks. That'll also be on ncac.org. So if you haven't yet chosen all of your summer reading and you're looking for some slightly notorious or even illicit items to work in there, we'll have a few recommendations for you.
And that CBLDF will continue to support the important work that is being done in South Carolina as a sponsor of the Kids Right to Read project and as a contributor to NCAC, and are thrilled to participate in that important work. Our Banned Books Week materials are going to start coming online next week at the ALA annual conference, where we will be releasing our 16-page Banned Books Week handbook, which features a cover by Jeff Smith, the author of the graphic novel series Bone, which was shockingly the 10th most challenged book of 2013. This handbook includes a lot of important information about myths about banned and challenged books, basic 101s about comics and censorship, and things that you can do in your community to celebrate the freedom to read and to fight censorship on your own local terms. In addition to the handbook, we've got a full season of content that's going to be rolling out on cbldf.org, including discussion guides for all of our graphic novel banned and challenged books, so that you can look at them and have discussion groups in your own library or in your own store, as well as a variety of materials that we're publishing for creators to get involved with their libraries for Banned Books Week and beyond. One of the great things about Banned Books Week that all of us in the sponsor group are so proud of is that Banned Books Week is about more than our individual organizations. It's about more than the authors who are facing challenges to their works, and it's even about more than the people that are having to endure the challenges. It's about the entire culture of readership in the United States and internationally who have this opportunity every year to speak out for their freedom to read in their own communities in ways that are meaningful to them. And so at CBLDF, just like at all of our partner organizations, we'll be creating some springboards for people to use to create their own local events. But really the thing that makes Banned Books Week so special, and the thing that makes Banned Books Week so unique every single year, is what each community brings to it. And so we hope to simply help spark the conversation, but we can't wait to see what those of you out there do with it in your own localities. And so with that, Nanette, is there anything else you want to cover today?
I do want to mention one, the Freedom Tree Foundation, which is a sponsoring organization of Banned Books Week. They administer annual Judith F. Krug Banned Books Week grants, which funds libraries, schools, and colleges and nonprofit organizations in support of their Banned Books Week celebrations. So if you want to host your own event and need some funding, please find out more information at ftrf.org.
Okay. Thank you so much, Cory, for joining us today. Thank you to our Banned Books Week sponsor groups, including the American Booksellers for Free Expression, the AAP, who's joined us, the NCAC, the ALA, and so many other groups that are involved. Nanette, do you have a full list in front of you?
Yes, it's the American Booksellers Association, American Booksellers Foundation for Free Expression, ALA, American Society of Journalists and Authors, AAP, CBLDF, Freedom Tree Foundation, National Association of College Stores, National Coalition Against Censorship, National Council of Teachers of English, Penn American Center, and is endorsed by the Center for the Book at the Library of Congress and Project Censor.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Cory, thank you, and best of luck at your conference.
All right. See you guys later.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.
Banned Books Week, everyone.
September 21st through the 27th. Bye.